This video is sponsored by Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace to host the channel's official site and merchandise store for about 2 years now, and compared to building a site from scratch, the difference has been PC and console. The clean UI makes it easy to create and customize content, embed YouTube videos, social media posts, and add new items to our store. A simplified all-in-one platform means you never have to install, patch, or upgrade anything, and I can tell you firsthand, their 24/7 customer support is better than most tech companies in the PC space. Don't tell them I said that. Squarespace has everything you need for your next domain, website, or online store. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/bitwit to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So for February's PC of the month, I thought it would be a great opportunity to rekindle an old flame of mine. See, back in October of 2016, I put together the Silver build, which till this day ranks as one of my favorite systems I've ever put together, mainly because of its stunning good looks. Like system, like owner, as they say. So I figured what better way to pay homage to this beautiful machine than by making a miniature version of it. That's right, the Silver build is getting its very own mini-me. And not only will the system be significantly smaller and 10 times more durable, but it'll be sporting modern high-end components that go well beyond the performance of its full-size predecessor. I've said it once and I'll say it again, people. Size does not matter. Not that I need to live by that statement. By now, I'm sure you guys are dying to see the rest of the hardware behind me. I know I'm kind of covering up some of the good stuff, so why don't we swap places really quick and take a look at the parts we'll be using for today's build. Our processor is the Intel Core i7-8700K, which is still the fastest gaming CPU on the market. But since we have 2 more cores and 4 more threads than the 6600K we're replacing, this will also make a killer chip for heavily multi-threaded workstation applications, which is pretty sweet. We'll be pairing our CPU with the Asus ROG Strix Z370i Gaming. This guy is loaded with all the features you could ever want on a mini ITX motherboard, but let's face it, I would use this thing even if it didn't have a socket just to have those sexy silver heatsinks. I take that back. It should really have a socket. You know what's nice about the Corsair Dominator Platinum? Everything. Speed, reliability, and oh look, more silver. Yes, this is the same 16GB DDR4 3000 kit that I used in the original Silver build, and I'm doing so again in this one without shame. To honor Papa Silver, I'm sticking with an EVGA GeForce card, but we're upgrading from a GTX 1070 to a 1080 Ti. This card alone is probably worth more than the rest of the parts for this build combined. Now let's move along before it gets awkward. Oh, too late. Lucky for me, the EVGA 1080 Ti has dual 8-pin power connectors just like the 1070 we used before it, meaning we can reuse the custom sleeved extensions that NSource made for the original build. Can you still feel your legs, ladies and gentlemen, or have your pants gotten too tight? One caveat of the 8700K is that it tends to run warm, especially when overclocked, so here we have a Corsair H100i V2 all-in-one liquid cooler. Like our RAM, we're borrowing this part from the original for its high performance and color scheme. Now when I was choosing the parts, I overlooked the fact that our case only supports SFX and SFXL power supplies, and this is really the only decent one I had on hand, the Corsair SF450. If I was planning to use this system long term, I would definitely upgrade to at least an SF600, especially if we plan to overclock our CPU and GPU, but for the purpose of this build, this should serve us just fine. Now this build would not be a proper successor without the Noctua Redux fans and their silvery aesthetic. So on the right we have a pair of NF S12Bs, and beside them 2 R8s, which are the cutest 80mm fans I've ever seen. Just adorable. For storage, we have a single Samsung 250GB 960 EVO M.2 NVMe SSD. A tried and true option that really is the best choice because you're too poor to afford a 960 Pro. Finally, we have the Lianli PC-Q37 as our beautiful canvas for today's build with its full aluminum chassis and tempered glass side panels. This thing is sick. Get well soon. And that is our rockstar lineup of hardware for today's rig. The total cost of the system ranges between, oh god, the pain, why, and your 401k. With that said, folks, it's time I leave you momentarily to go off and assemble the Silver Build 2.0 Mini. build's done. And what did we learn? We learned that this case is very particular about which GPUs it can actually fit. Length is pretty much not a problem. It can fit full-size GPUs, even extra long ones. Height, however, is a bottleneck. For example, you might notice we have the original GTX 1070 in here. That's because we could not fit the 1080 Ti inside. It just would not work. It was way too tall. The cooler was just at least a centimeter or so too freaking high. Even this card hardly fit. I had to bend one of the corners of our side panel mounts where the threaded hole is just to get it to fit. And even then, it barely scraped by. After getting the card in, I was sure that the worst was behind me, but no! Turns out, because the cooler's just a little too high for this case, that the 8-pin connectors, particularly the cable sticking out here, don't allow the side panel to close. So here we have an open frame system. Now, since I'm not planning to use this system for anything, I don't really care. In fact, it'll probably get disassembled within the next month or so. But even still, if I was using this as a daily driver or something like that, I might even consider leaving the side panel off. One, because it's incredibly quiet. All the Noctua fans, even the 80mm, are dead quiet. See, I said quiet, not silent, because you can still kind of hear them, but they are really quiet. And there's really not a ton of airflow going to our GPU right now. In fact, I don't know if there's any airflow going to it other than its own fans on the cooler, because you do have the option to install two 120mm on this metal plate underneath the card if you so wish, but I did not. But I'd imagine even if you did mount some fans down here, the GPU, especially a large one like this one, would block any airflow going to the rest of our components. So for that reason, I would probably use this in an open air configuration anyway. Apart from everything that went wrong in the lower half of the system, I am really happy with how it turned out, even though the Corsair logo on our radiator is upside down. That kind of sucks. I could have flipped the radiator, but then the tubes would have been all cramped and bunched up on the left side of the case, and it just wouldn't have worked out well. Of course, like most movies, the original tends to be the best, and there were a few compromises we had to make shrinking down to a small form factor case. For one, there's no room at all for an LED strip. Nowhere that makes sense anyway. We could put one on the glass panel, but that would be dumb. There's also no denying just how perfectly that silver Enthoo Evolve ATX case from Fantex matched the overall color scheme of our first build. And here we get more or less a plain black chassis. However beautiful, it is not silver. And I wasn't gonna spray paint it because that takes too long. But again, like I said, very happy with how it turned out. You guys let me know what you think, and also stay tuned for part 2 when we test acoustics, thermals, overclocking, benchmarks, and all that fun stuff. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to toss a like on it before you go, and feel free to subscribe to FLOATPLANE if you want to watch my content a week early without ads. Guys, thanks for watching, have a good one, and I'll see y'all in the next video.